looking in the right place on the camera.
Everybody sanga gurune tashidele. Tapa mi good people to buy sama tashidele.
Now we are starting the Amitabha retreat. Tashidele to everyone.
Welcome everyone to our first day of practice for the Amitabha sadhana, and we'll start with the yellow prayer book on page 1. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Namo Nazi Namda Ge Lama La Nazi Yegen Sa Jubamba Kamsa Yondra Da Sorwan De Korwa Tongzhou Sa Senjelo Ye Yib Ye Na Tongge Ge Naza Jeme Jave Tok Jembe Ye Ye Ngadan De Tsebe Danye Kade Je Gowa Jomze Rambo Je Da Semye Je Ngang Le Sowa Je Chuni Je Ngang De Senje Lo Sendune Je Namda Ge Londe Je Ga Dowa Senje Lo.
Page 9. Namo, to the Guru, the utter purity of all appearance and existence, I offer all appearance and existence arisen as the primordial ground. I supplicate you. May the three realms be completely liberated. Please grant blessings to empty samsara from its depths. Lord, with five omniscient wisdoms, crown ornament, kind one with loving nature, precious protector of beings, heart of all Buddhas, inexpressible by words or thought, I supplicate you from the core of my mind. Bless me from within the state of Dharmata. Bless me to realize this mind, primordially pure and unborn as the unfathomable Dharmakaya.
Amitabha sadhana.
Next we'll go to the Amitabha sadhana, called the meditation and recitation of Amitabha, called Uniting with the Pure Land of Sukhavati on page 1. In the space in front appears the Guru in the form of Amitabha, surrounded by an inconceivable retinue of bodhisattvas. Namo, to the three jewels and the three roots, the places of protection, I go for refuge. In order to establish all beings in Buddhahood, I give rise to the mind set on supreme awakening. Page 2. With sincere faith, I pay homage to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas abiding in the 10 directions and the 3 times. I offer flowers, incense, lamps, fragrances, food, music, and the like, actually arranged and mentally created. Supreme Gathering, please accept them. I confess all evil deeds, the 10 non-virtues, the 5 acts without interval that I have committed, overpowered by mental affliction since beginningless time until now. I rejoice in the merit, all the virtue accumulated in the 3 times by the Shravakas, Praktya Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, ordinary beings, and the like. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both according to the aspirations and diverse mental capacities of sentient beings. Until samsara is emptied, do not pass into nirvana, but compassionately look upon sentient beings drowning in the ocean of suffering. May all the merit I have accumulated become the cause of awakening, and may I soon become a glorious guide of beings. The field of accumulation dissolves into me, thus the mind of the 4 immeasurables has arisen within the mind streams of myself and all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness. May they be free from all suffering. May they never be separated from happiness. May they abide in great equanimity. Top of page 5. An appearance and existence, all phenomenon of samsara and nirvana are empty by nature. Not realizing this, how afflicted are deluded beings in samsara. My own awareness appears as a white Hri, the manifestation of unified emptiness, clarity, and compassion. The Hri transforms into myself, appearing as Chenrezig, seated upon a cushion of lotus and moon. I have one face and 4 arms. 2 are joined at the heart, and the other 2 hold a lotus and garland. Peaceful and with loving countenance, I am dressed in the garments of Sambhogakaya Buddha. Sitting in cross-legged posture, my lower body is enfolded in a lotus. In the space in front, upon a seat of lotus and moon, appears a red Hri, gleaming with light. The light radiates, pleasing the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and gathering their knowledge, love, and power. The light then dissolves back into the Hri. Again, light rays radiate to the 6 realms, purifying the karmic visions, self-grasping, and habitual imprints of sentient beings. The light gathers back, and the Hri transforms into the supreme protector of beings, Buddha Amitabha. He is bright red like a mountain of rubies with 1 face and 2 arms in equipoise mudra, holding a begging bowl. He is garbed in the 3 Dharma robes and sits in cross-legged posture. Ceaselessly looking upon beings with eyes of compassion, he appears as the great embodiment of all Buddhas. On his right is the noble supreme Chenrezig with 1 face and 2 arms holding a white lotus with his left hand. White and adorned with jewels, he stands upright. To the left of the Lord is the Bodhisattva Vajrapani with 1 face and 2 arms. Holding a Vajra in the left hand, blue and adorned with jewels, he stands upright. They are surrounded by an assembly of Bodhisattvas. The 3 places of the principal Lord are marked with the 3 syllables. From the syllables white, red, and blue, light radiates to the 10 directions, and in particular to the pure land of Sukhavati, invoking the heart pledge of Amitabha and his retinue, who then instantly appear at this place. Home. In great bliss sphere of my own primordially pure awareness abides Amitabha and the retinue as the naturally present innate radiance. From the beginning, the Samaya being and the wisdom being are one, yet your form manifests from the great expanse, from the expanse of great love and compassion in accordance with the mental inclinations of beings. Following your heart pledge, come here to this place and be seated indivisibly from the mandala of the Samaya being. Bottom of page 10. Hri, I offer this water endowed with the 8 attributes, with the nature of generosity to the mouths of the victorious ones. May there be perfect fortune for all beings. I offer this foot cleansing water, clear, cool, pristine, and exquisite, and with the nature of morality to the feet of the victorious ones. May all beings be relieved from the torment of existence. I offer various beautiful celestial flowers that have the nature of patience to the eyes of the victorious ones. May all beings be endowed with the 7 attributes of the higher realms. I offer naturally sweet-smelling scents and blended incense that has the nature of diligence to the noses of the victorious ones. May all beings become free from the bonds of existence. I offer this precious, radiant, and lustrous lamp that has the nature of meditation to the hearts of the victorious ones. May all beings clear away the dense darkness of their deluded minds. I offer fragrant medicinal elixir, saffron, and the like, which have the nature of transcendent knowledge to the bodies of the victorious ones. May all beings realize the inner nature of phenomenon. I offer food endowed with the essence of 100 tastes and with the nature of method to the tongues of the victorious ones. May all beings be sustained by the food of samadhi. I offer harmonious musical sounds such as those of conch shell, drum, and bell, which have the nature of power to the ears of the victorious ones. May all beings be endowed with the awakening mind. I offer the 5 desirables that appease the senses and have the nature of prayer to the victorious ones. May all beings be satisfied by untainted bliss. I offer the 8 auspicious substances, the 8 auspicious symbols, and the 7 royal attributes, which have the nature of wisdom to the victorious ones. May all beings attain the attributes of Buddhahood. All owned and unowned things of the entire infinite billion-fold universe, my own body, enjoyments, and all possessions, I offer without holding anything back to the pure land of Sukhavati. May the self-grasping of beings be thereby fully pacified, and may they be endowed with the awakening mind, and may their birth in the pure land be unobstructed. Realizing that my own mind is the Buddha, I pay homage on the ultimate level, abiding within ungraspable empty awareness. Everything comprised within appearance and existence is offered. Deluded perceptions of dualist grasping are confessed within the expanse of Dharmata. I rejoice within the state of the spontaneous completion of the 3 kayas. The Dharma wheel of unceasing compassion will always turn. Abide within the natural Dharmakaya that pervades all samsara and nirvana, an infinite pervasiveness where there is no reference point of the 3 spheres. Dedication will always take place. Page 16. Hri, ever turning the wheel of Dharma in the pure land of Sukhavati, you unceasingly look upon sentient beings with compassion. Homage and praise to Amitabha, who, abiding in equipoise, follows his pledge to act for the purpose of beings. To Chenrezig, Vajrapani, and the other bodhisattvas, the noble assembly of arhats, and the gathering of deities abiding in Sukhavati, I humbly pay homage and offer praise with body, speech, and mind. Page 17. At the heart of myself, appearing as Chenrezig on a moon disk, is a Hri surrounded by the 6-syllable mantra circling clockwise. From it, light radiates and a white mantra garland issues forth, emerging from my heart and dissolves into the heart of the deity visualized in front. Thus, Amitabha's compassionate heart pledge of body, speech, and mind is invoked. From the mantra garland around the Hri at the heart of Amitabha, a red mantra garland of light emerges from his mouth, enters my mouth, and I obtain blessings and attainments. In this way, the mantra circles continuously between myself and Amitabha. The multicolored light issuing from the circling mantra garland pleases the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, purifies the 3 types of obscurations of all sentient beings in the 3 realms and the universe, and beings transform into the pure land of Sukhavati.
Amitabha sure song, the saying your data jetty Amitabha is my data jetty, so the king not Tamji, Oba me the Guinea, the Gypsy Room, Corridor, the Tamji, the Amitabha Loco, the no gone none, the native got neatly, the young Rukashi, you.
So Dharma friends, please continue to recite the Amitabha mantra by yourself quietly, and also think that all the sounds, all speech, everything becomes the mantra of Amitabha, Amamedeva Shri, and think that all the entire outer, the natural environment and the trees and so forth, everything transforms, all beings transform into Amitabha and Chenrezig and Tara, and then all recite together the Amitabha mantra. So meditate in this way while I'm giving a few words of introduction.
Kashi o sheshi ba di shero di ngata da lo nyong re de ngashi ga mare sa ne na no lo ju do ngachi bo do ngata da chi go sa mare sa ji ge a de li de mare nam chi chami chi ji ni mi re sha lo nyong ma nyong yo mare de chi ji ni mi re ra yo mare ji na o ta te na nga ya do sa ta de je go no Pachinga Babin and Joachim Yaxari, lead up there or some of Tango.
So people may ask that, so the practice of Amitabha, what do we need to practice the Buddha Amitabha? And so when you practice the Buddha Amitabha, then later when you die, you have sort of prepared a place to go, like a country or a city where you can go. Because some people might think that, oh, I'm quite young, I'm not going to die anytime soon, and I'm wealthy and I'm happy, I probably don't need anything. But actually no, because the timing of death is uncertain and the conditions that will lead to death are many. So whether you're old or young, the conditions of your death are uncertain. You have no freedom. So then if you speak in this way in response, then people may come to understand that, well, I better make a preparation of a place that I can go to. I better make a connection to the Buddha Amitabha.
얘는 코와레 마타나 다디나네 마타나 지난 그 등에 냠도 저거는데 손 이 뉴모 쪽랑 조아 쪽 냐와 예다 들은 들이 독과 등이 주착과 요래들 오 다데 로사 요 땅하데 레가 짜고 살레시 안 바비를 레가 짜고 살레 삼 로테 용거를
And some people experience a lot of suffering in their lives, and they feel that I don't want to live in this world. And they're trying to get getting ready for death for this reason. But then when you die in such a way, then you actually will not be free from suffering. So you think that when you die there won't be any suffering, you will leave it all behind with this world. But such a person doesn't really know how to properly prepare for death. So if you really understand, then you would know that the suffering will go with you when you die. And for as long as you do not become liberated from samsara, as long as you are not liberated from self-grasping, suffering will always follow you. The 6 afflictive emotions manifest naturally as the 6 realms of samsara, such as hell. So there is much worse suffering than the present suffering. So if you say that, then maybe the thought in a person arises thinking that, oh, I better actually put my hopes into the Buddha Amitabha.
가시에 당아 노타로 주보당 중마서 보통서 봐요데 얘는 당아 비 나게도 당아 찍지는 셔시사리 당아 마셔나 마셔 탑지 요는 대사체사리 상 다대나 정 들이 책임 빈바조니 레그 책임 빈바조 손에 정 탑요 말에 옛날에 레그 빈마마도 로를 쳐지 있는데 바벨도 소화되는 바벨 시바데고 진짜 세계가 좁고요래지 그러니까 이제 수비들 공체바미 랍도요래 라마치 바리 거기에 챔피마마도 로로 같이 이만이 비쳐왔더니 좁고요래 그래서 바벨도 소화되는 남직 챔피마도 어디는 현실이 되었지 공을 되었지는 거기 작업들은 로도바 거기 작업을 메시 차도바 내려고 제거를 어따띠에 탑약원도 없던 나 같이 다보 마셔라 두개지 이렇게 이천에다가 로사를 요르다 때 자체살에 다바미로서 와대고도 없어 들이 소탐진이들이 다바미라 소와담나 다지 약사에서 로지 제고 그래지.
And some other people think that I do have money and I have a spouse and children and so on, but I'm always sick. And what can I do so I won't die? So they try to find different ways to prevent death. So in that case, for example, if the karmic force of this lifespan is exhausted, then there is nothing that you can do about it. There's no method. However, if the karmic force of this life is not yet completed, it is still possible that temporary, momentary obstacles or conditions arise. And in that case, it is very beneficial to supplicate to Buddha Amitabha as he will grant protection in this and future lives. Often when we are alive, we supplicate to the Buddha Amitabhas, but they are actually the same. And so even though you're still alive and your lifespan karmically has not yet come to an end, it's still possible that you encounter some momentary, temporary, or sudden conditions or obstacles, such as untimely death. And in that case, the Buddha Amitabha can really protect you when you supplicate. And then when the point comes that your life is coming to an end, then this mind should arise where you think, I have a place to go. I can go to Devachan. It is like becoming a citizen in the Buddha Amitabha's country. So you know that you can go there. And then you will feel that, oh, this is really an excellent method. So for as long as I'm still alive, thank you for me still being alive, not dying yet. That's how you would think. But if I die, then I have somewhere to go. Therefore, I must supplicate to the Buddha Amitabha. And so from whichever perspective you think about it, if you supplicate to the Buddha Amitabha, then this mind should arise thinking that this is really necessary, the best thing to do. And then so some also might say that I already have a different Lama or teacher, or I have a different religion, or I have a different Yidam deity that protects me. So I won't need a Buddha Amitabha. So if that's the case, then you should ask that person, but that, for example, that practice or deity you follow, are you really certain in that? Do you really have complete confidence or trust that you have such a really firm connection? For example, that you surely recognize this deity and can communicate with them and so on. Because if you don't have this complete certainty, then you have to be careful too. So when you supplicate the Buddha Amitabha, on the other hand, there is complete certainty. You can completely trust in that. He takes care of all sentient beings, not just us, humans and animals, all the sentient beings in the three realms of samsara. So if you tell that to someone, then they might think that, oh, I better make a connection to the Buddha Amitabha, even though I do have other places of refuge, other practices, but at the time of death, it might still be better if I have at least a connection to the Buddha Amitabha, so I should make a connection.
가사가리 찹더거래 찹되는 들이 뒤따고 되는 조화를 족도 다디 레 박차기 지대 찹들 레다 박차기 사자거래 들이 뒤는 라왕미가 찹으면 들이 쳐서 또 손도거래 밤에만 조요래 등에는 용도 사다 전에서 되나 조화를 등에 되는 뭐 다디 줄에 매용 거래 들이다 다 ጭ땅 꼰초로서 안 되지 봐 범바디 차나 들이 쳤더니 라드 상제지 봐 쳤더 차고죠 랑과는 랑과는 양조 탑요래스 들이 제만 들이 대라서 버더니 사다지 당면은 양무서도 조바지다라 단제와 제더니 링지 단제를 다시 감지다라 단 조고요래스 신감다 들링지 제발 가려대 랭지는 안 속에 니멍 지르는데 손나 니들 레다 박차 단딘요래 인딘요래 되게 등이 용거래 니멍보다 단딘다 맞다는 니멍보다 맞다는 등에다 맞다버래 대회는 니멍보다 단딘다 잔이 힘히로데 그네 힘히로데 남는다버래 니는 소리더니 랭자가들 다 보신 강하대 다들 단딘 다 단딘 매와 마다바데는 단디 용자들이 유망 쪽이 되래 들으신데 그 단디 유망 쪽면은 이 유망의 미니 시간은 좀 그래 그냥 다 보셔 가면 들려와 자고 그래지
So this world actually is small. There are actually limitless worlds just like this. So the Buddha spoke about the third order, 1,000-fold universe, and he spoke about there being hundreds and millions of billions of world systems. There is the first order 1,000-fold universe, the second and the third. And so basically there are really limitless worlds just like this where beings live. And so where do where do these worlds come from? Beings are born there and they create those worlds. And once they are born, they are also bound to die. So is there a world where one doesn't have to be born and die? So there is no such a world or universe. Once one is born, one will die. And anyone suffers when they die. Everyone doesn't want to die. But what actually is dying? So the body is like a crystal vase or a glass a container. And the mind is like the water inside. And so when that container breaks, then, which is when we die, when the body, when the container breaks, then the water, which is the mind, then dissolves, falls down and dissolves into the earth. And when that happens, then we have lost our freedom. And then the water permeates all over the entire earth. And this is how we take birth in the 6 realms of samsara. So the karmic imprints that arise out of self-grasping are like that earth. And without any control over it, without any autonomy, the mind just pervades that earth. And then the power of the water, or the mind, the power of the water is thereby lost. And therefore one experiences a lot of suffering. So the 6 realms of samsara arise out of self-grasping, which leads to the arising of the 6 afflictive emotions, which lead to suffering. If we supplicate 2 to 3 jewels when that container breaks, then ideally the water has become hot water, and hot water produces steam or evaporation and evaporates into the sky. So that's the ideal method. The water rises and merges with the sky. And so when we practice a deity, a yidam deity, it is like we are making a connection to a different world, a different place in the universe. And so there's different worlds in the universe. There are the different worlds, just like ours, and then there are the various Pure Lands. And so what's the difference between those many worlds in the universe and the Pure Lands? In those other worlds in the universe, just like in our world, beings experience suffering due to their dualistic perception, which arises due to their self-grasping and their karmic imprints. So they are not liberated from self-grasping, and if one is not liberated from self-grasping, one will not be liberated from the afflictive emotions. And if one is not free of the afflictive emotions, then one will not be free of suffering. So we must therefore separate from self-grasping, and the way to separate from self-grasping is through the altruistic mind, which is like an airplane that when you board it, it will take you to this better world, or the Pure Lands. It is called pure because their beings are pure or free of self-grasping. In all the other worlds, they are impure worlds because sentient beings still grasp at a self, and therefore they still possess the 6 afflictive emotions. And so when we purify those 6 afflictive emotions, then they mature. And when they mature into the 5 wisdoms. So for this reason, we have to kind of put our hope into the Pure Land.
Jackson Jackson Matthew Japan be Tongan Sarson. De la so Jabala so botany Payumson the Jola Tibaga Tolge Sala Mumbache the later more sort of lamnatine the Tarang Tabalam to Tabi Terita Mate Della Deva Tang David Josan Demarche so that just a matter in Niger, Yina Nupatada, Savata Pan, you know Savata Pan is nobody, you know, yet a pan song, pan take a mapana carried, or there are the check the watch young was I give up some to watch it, so the bash about the year part of Batana, they did not to church that go your head. The way the Shedang down Chado, the last of Baki, and in songs of the Jerry. The territory is that the Chatang Aje, the last of Baki, and Tori Stana, Jerry, New Momana, de la show your territory, new Kang Shoction disorder, and new Moma, really not tongue your didn't it? New Moma, something that Tori new Moma. Some to in songs of the Demo Shedang, Demo Shedang, Senasum, Dignity, in songs of Yaya, the rest of the in songs of Jesse, Sena, Shedang, the Mok something. The Mokshibat started that the came in or Mitchell Chena, a chick I tell you, not be great to me, not to go about all in the Giovanni me, legend Jamie, Mabutawa, something. The Mokotawa, the Choran made, they were made to be on my sending you. They are a chop yore, doing the down yore. They just everything in Jim, they were everything in something and all yore. Don't nothing, just yes, give out and tourism and over tap the tour. So what there is.
And this term of transference, the po of po, refers to the body when it transfers. I mean, the mind when it transfers from the body. In the 37 practices, it says, consciousness, the guest, will cast aside the guest house of the body. So when a consciousness casts aside the body, then the mind will follow the karma accumulated. Milarepa said to the disciple Bardabum, he said, girl, Bardabum, the next life is longer than this life. Have you prepared any provisions for the future lives? If you have not, then you better practice generosity, and so forth. And so he spoke about the benefits of generosity here. If you have such a cause, then the happiness of the higher realms will naturally manifest. So one follows the path according to one's karmic disposition. For example, one follows the path of the individual liberation, a pratimoksha, which is a path of liberation. And so we say that may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Cause of happiness is love and compassion. And that also entails not causing harm towards others, abandoning harm and its causes. And then the Buddha also said, do not commit any wrong, perfectly practice virtue. This wrong or negativity, what that literally means is it is something that comes back to you. So if you're harming others, then harm will come back to you. So, for example, if you develop anger and jealousy and so forth, you take birth in the 3 lower realms. If you develop attachment and pride and so forth, you take birth in the higher realms. And also it depends on the level of the strength of one's 5 afflictive emotions. And whichever one is predominant will determine your future birth. And then each of the 5 afflictive emotions can also be combined with each other, so we get to 25 and so forth. So basically we have 3 afflictive emotions that lead to birth in the 3 higher realms, and 3 afflictive emotions that lead to birth in the 3 lower realms. The 3 causes that will throw one into the 3 lower realms, the hells, hungry spirits, and animals, are hatred, stinginess, and ignorance. Ignorance means to not accept karma. For example, if you ask someone, so what are you doing? And then they say, I'm not doing anything. As long as I'm not hungry, I'm fine. So there are certain kinds of views of people who do not believe in past and future lives and karma, cause and effect, for example, communist views and so on. These are all views of ignorance. Even if you think that it doesn't exist, it doesn't disappear just because you think that. You still are attached to happiness and you still do not want to suffer. And so for as long as you have that, you have a cause, and this cause will lead to the result that corresponds to the cause, which is then taking birth in the 3 lower realms. And then likewise, even the slightest virtuous action becomes the cause for birth in the higher realms. So then when you think about it in this way, then you think that I have to find a method to be able to go there.
그러니까 무스다다 데이터들이 고갑다 찾기 못었나 세우들이 데이터들이 그런 차와 단계내야 되니 좀 받아 추천 조박을 함께 모시네 또 새로 통해 디들이 문제네 그러니까 그들이 많았다 아미디와라서 보면은 되나 돈들이 똑같이 엄마다 여기와 벌써 똑같이 기와 되더니 내가 왜 기와는 다소가 기와들이 이렇게 쪼꺼지 다다 반도니 당가서 샤리앙 토리즘이 되니 우리 성좀 고 주니 토리즘을 랩터바디 잡이도 막을 다 직접적으로 잡이도 막을 조금 보아를 나는 거고요. 인지 문제 토리즘을 탑탑바디 탑도 제거를 따뜻한 먹게도 방기 와치도 조금 디나리랑 그 라운 메퍼 거를 다시 접수나 마루바들이 샤과치 조고요. 들이 샤과치 저기 쳐버려. 탐지 뒤쪽으로 들이 샤탑들나 가고요. 옛날들이 니마르리라들이 풍부스면도 니니선 친리선 돌아들이 내려들이 사족선부터 와 샤토고요. 요바 미래 샤고에만 다서 요바치 여기 쳐버려. 레점들 이치쳐 보지 가사 대나 그랬다 데모들이 송바다들 데이터는 토리선 탑을 매저대 그랬다 조금 되나 조금 저들은 포화를 가져요 포화를 봤으면요 라브 죽음 포화 정말 놓고 포화 타마 죽음 포화도 죽음 포화들 재미 독지심 포화 재미 독지 포화 재미 버독지 삼바 재미 받아 이게 재미 봐 la florjantieni ben torienti le diceme va trovaggio di dogete doya yore daji 인항을 따와 찾고 요가 때 마도 맞다 데리다 사바는 희결을 거는 대체는 토리선 탑탑이 탑도 사지게 때 말이지.
In the wishing prayer of Dewa-chan, it says, abandon the 10 non-virtuous actions and practice the 10 virtuous actions. So in the prayer it says, so for example, that means to practice the protecting life, being generous, keeping one's vows, speaking the truth, speaking gently, reconciling people, speaking meaningfully, and developing a mind of detachment, free from anger and ignorance. When we die, with such a mind of having practiced virtue, then we will obtain the qualities of a body in the higher realms. And that is already really excellent. So for as long as we see a dualistic reality of self and other, when we have not yet been able to completely overcome this, purify this perception, this dualistic grasping, at that time it is important to practice love and compassion, which is reflected in one's actions, the practice of the 6 paramitas. And so this has to be brought to mind. When that comes to your mind, even if you do not have the perfect opportunity or conditions complete to actually always practice the 6 paramitas, it actually mainly boils down to the mind, the subtle activities within the mind. So in the mind, you have to recognize the essence of generosity, discipline, and patience. That all actually arises from the mind. So this is what needs to be recognized. And then with this recognition, you can practice any virtue such as reciting the Mani mantra or the Amitabha mantra or doing prayers and so on. So the Buddha said, do not commit any wrong, perfectly practiced virtue. That is virtue in a temporary sense and also an ultimate sense. So for the poem, there is the Nirmanakaya poem, which leads to birth in the 3 higher realms. It closes the doors to the 3 lower realms in the Bardo. So this is also the essence, really, the benefit of taking the refuge vows. So for the Nirmanakaya Poa, we are applying a method to, at least by all means, take birth in the 3 higher realms by practicing the 10 virtues and abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions. So sometimes if it happens that without us having much control over it, we practice a non-virtuous action, then one can confess that and purify it. And actually confession is very important. It is difficult to confess everything at the same time, so therefore it is important to confess each and every day throughout the 3 periods of day and the 3 periods of the night. For example, by reciting the 3 Skanda Sutra, the 3 Heap Sutra, and so forth, and practicing virtue. And in this way, the Bodhisattva vows and so forth will be protected. So when a transgression occurs, regret is important. It is said that if one doesn't regret, then a negativity cannot become purified through confession. So regret is very important. A person who has strong trust in karma, it will be just like according to how it is explained in the wishing prayer of Dewa Chen, they will make an effort in attaining the state of the higher realms. And so today we're speaking about Poa, and for Poa there are 3 levels. There is the highest Poa, which is the Dharmakaya Poa, then the middling Poa, which is the Sambhogakaya Poa, and then the 3rd Poa is the Nirmanakaya Poa, which is the poem of immeasurable great compassion. So here one cultivates in one's lifetime a mind of immeasurable love and compassion, and as a result of such cultivation in the future, one will obtain the qualities of a body in the higher realms in all future lifetimes. And so this is something that one can actually really do. We can really accomplish that. So for someone who still perceives the duality of self and other, for them, this dualistic perception is very strong. And from that perspective, it is difficult to just turn away from that, to turn it around. And so therefore, from that perspective, for someone like that, it is important to meditate on, to cultivate that mind of love and compassion, to create the cause for taking birth in the higher realms.
the Jinsem, Donsem, Zusem, they love to run Yigitri, Juliet, Netugore, take each boy. Shenkoman Chupapa, that check that out. Oh, this don't Chuban Dapana, you didn't that talk those. Three woman data particular paying chimbo, told you the paying didn't want it, didn't part of some don't want to be Jambai, Senabe Bangani, or three times no Baba wants to send me. This Zuba to be Jabba, certain Zuba, don't do something. Shirablatini, sometimes doing it our dancing race. They need more Jimping Lord race or the sharp go to Shirab, they machine it in it, St. Mark by child, the eta with the Range non Kovasawati, passing to Chanuk state or Hakona. They take a Tori on the job over your data was the Hakogores.
So the sadhana, the Amitabha sadhana, introduces us on how the offerings that we make to the higher beings are connected to the practice of the 10 paramitas. So some people don't really understand that part of the sadhana and how we really accumulate merit in that way. So it is through the result that corresponds to the cause the result that will come from having made these offerings. And this is what the sadhana here introduces to. So when one understands that, one knows, oh, this offering has that kind of benefit, will lead to that kind of result, and so on. When I make this offering to the higher beings, regarding the ordinary or lower beings, for example, we have to care for our spouses, our children, our parents, and so forth. And there are not a lot of people who do not love their family. And there's probably no one who doesn't love their own child. So actually, by taking care of them, we are practicing the 6 paramitas, so the essence of the 6 paramitas, but we have not yet perfected them, those 6 practices. So we practice the essence in our caring for them, the essence of generosity, of discipline, and of patience, and so forth, are complete. For example, because you love your child, for instance, you will be generous. Normally we are very stingy with our money, but when there is love, then we will not be. Or when there is love, then we will not want to hurt them. And when there is love, when you love them, you will be patient with them. And if you love them, you will always think of them, which is really the essence of meditation. So then you will make an effort in these practices, which is the essence of diligence. You always think about them. You always think about your children and your spouses, your family. You think about that they have a place to live and what they will do later on and so on. So the mind always kind of revolves around that. So the family members, like your children and so on, are like objects that you look after. And then, however, you should also think that even though I have to look after them now, there actually has not been a single sentient being who has not been such a family. All sentient beings, limitless as space, have been my parents. So therefore, you should think, may all sentient beings, limitless as space, receive all my roots of virtue. So when you dedicate the benefits of having practiced these paramitas, like being generous and not harming others and so forth, then dedicate that for the sake of all sentient beings. And this is how these practices will then eventually become perfections, become paramitas. But for that, first you have to recognize their essence, the essence of a generous mind, or a disciplined mind, or a patient mind. So that is very important, to recognize their essence. And so then in the sadhana, when you understand that, and then you read that sadhana of how we make this offering, which leads to that result, then you will really understand the meaning and know that, oh, by making this offering, I will receive this quality, and so forth. You will understand that the benefit of the practice of the 6 paramitas and how the practice of them leads to the 7 qualities of the higher realms. So then you will naturally give away to your child, to your family, and so on. You will be generous, you will not hold back, you will not want to harm them, you will be disciplined, you will be patient. And so all the paramitas are complete within that. And then the paramita of wisdom is that to recognize the actual root of suffering of all sentient beings. And that is self-grasping. And it also means to recognize that the antidote to self-grasping is the altruistic mind. And that really is sufficient for the cultivation of wisdom, just to know that. And it's precisely because sentient beings do not know that they are ignorant and wandering in samsara. So in this way, even as you engage in your normal samsaric mundane activities, you can learn how the 6 paramitas are actually perfectly complete within these activities, and how they become cause of taking birth in the higher realms. So then, based on this understanding, you will begin to create these causes and practice these causes of birth in the higher realms.
rangi gewazi manchikochi dokamani simji tamji lam sitrin simji tamji nyamdu jukuyu samne jesaba dungi chungde de yongna kaptri rangi dungi de nyamdu zabri ge dungi de lam sitrin toba simji tamji dungi lam sitrin toba di chana ni ta thori jo percent yore gadina de mandre jetona nga matile woman be home the 17th of the lamp train to watch on the for good drop your head get your head.
So in brief, knowing that if you just recite a single mani mantra, for example, you would be able to bring to mind all sentient beings in an instant and think that we are all reciting this together, or the Amitabha mantra and so on. Or when you experience even the slightest suffering, together with that, you would also bring to mind all the suffering of the world, of all sentient beings in an instant. You will be able to bring that to mind. And so when you are able to do that, then you are creating the causes of taking birth in the higher realms. And then when you habituate to that, then at any time when you recite a mani mantra, you don't think about yourself, but when you say Om Mani Padme Hum, you instantly bring to mind all sentient beings. And this is how you create the causes of birth in the higher realms. So therefore, that is very important. And so even in this life, if you have an altruistic mind, then just naturally your body and your mind will become relaxed and your own suffering will be reduced. So therefore, that's really very important. If you really, you should really have this firm trust, knowing that the only cause of the higher realms is the altruistic mind. So if you just accomplish that, that is important, that is excellent.
Om Amitabha, 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 Om Amitabha. Oh
If everyone can please continue to recite mantra, and we will resume the live stream at 11 a.m. Thank you.